I wanna go back to another key question that I had in my mind, which is, having been in this space with panels, inverters, all sorts of solar equipment for the past decade and a half, I've always heard great things about AP systems, but I've also observed that you guys don't have the same strong market share that your key competitor Enphase enjoys. So I've always wondered how come. Um, so
Great
what have
question.
been some of the challenges to growth for AP systems versus Enphase, I guess, is one way to put it.
Yeah, we actually get that question quite a bit, because there are people that say your product's clearly superior. Like, how come nobody knows about this? So there's really three parts to that. The first part being when we were first trying to get off the ground, um, trying to break into distribution is tough for a new manufacturer because the distributors, especially national distributors, they don't want to take a risk on somebody new, especially when nobody's asking for the product. So most of the distributors we talked to were, they said, if installers start asking for your product, then I'll start selling it. So
Yeah.
you really had to do a grassroots effort. And so when Enphase encountered that, they're like, okay, big, massive branding campaign. They went public very early, giant fundraising campaign, and they pushed a lot of brand, a lot of product out there. They were sponsoring every event. They were big. They were, all over the place. What you'll see now is their presence at trade shows, very minimal, if any. They're not sponsoring events anymore. Like their target is now, they don't target installers anymore. They target end users. Um, but they did that very early on is really trying to push to installers so that they could get their product adopted by a lot of distributors. And so AP Systems, we faced that same challenge, and we really tried to focus on growing organically and growing profitably. So um, we've been profitable every year for the past 12 years, because we didn't grow, we didn't do debt growth, we did organic growth. So we only went public 2 years ago, and not 10 years ago. Um, and or I don't remember when Enphase went public, but it was a while back. And not taking on that debt, not taking on high risk loans, not taking on those uh, challenges to our that actually inhibit our finances, but improve our market share. So breaking into distributors was harder for us. There was a while in AP Systems was like, we'll sell to anybody with a pulse, just trying to keep product moving. But as we continued to produce quality product and continue to differentiate, we over time we were able to get these national distributors to adopt our product. Sometimes it started, half a pallet at a time, not even a full pallet. We'll take half a pallet, and then yeah, full pallet. I mean, and now it's the opposite. Now we're selling, container loads by the dozen, and now we're uh, having to knock off, other distributors with a bat, and so good problems to have. And another issue was trying to pair with third party, so TPO financiers, to be on their AVLs.
Yeah.
Those to get them on board has been a challenge. And Phase have been pretty clever over the years of, with some customers when they get an inkling that a customer is either shopping around or that a competitor is looking to break in. Like they have done their best to really try to preserve that business, sometimes at cost. and we're just going to offer that product with no margin just so we can keep that business, or we are going to um, try to go for exclusivity. So they'll do exclusivity with distributors. They would do exclusivity with some of these financiers. So if a customer liked the product or installer liked the product, they couldn't even get financing on an APsystems, for a long time because of that exclusivity. So they were very clever about really trying to um, be the only option in the microinverter space. And I would argue that the industry probably suffered more from that, not having that competition and that kind of free market, um, and fewer options um, than it probably should have. But those dominoes have fallen away since then, and so APsystems is offered on a wide variety of TPO AVLs, and we have probably 25 distributors, most of them national distributors, where we are offered on
Mhm.
their line cards. And yeah, the growth problem is not so much a problem anymore.
Were there any advantages along the way from a policy regulation perspective that benefited Enphase over others as well?
Yeah, we actually ran into that uh, with the IRA legislation most recently. Um, when um, when they were writing the legislation for IRA, they actually went so far as to uh, Enphase had some good connections with lobbyists, and they were able to actually influence to have the definition of a microinverter be very specific to their product, which is pretty clever. If it was just us and Enphase, it'd be like, wow, good move. Okay, you thought of that. That's a way to keep other people blocked out. However, when you look at the other dozen microinverter manufacturers, they're all multi-module micro manufacturers, and Enphase was able to influence the legislation to be written as one microinverter to one panel, and no microinverter can be greater than 650 watts AC. And
Wow.
with most of our products, most of our products exceed that. Um, and the other
And so
multi-module
that
microinverters as well.
disqualifies certain certain rebates or certain credits.
Exactly. And
Wow.
that also meant that we couldn't build here in the US. There was no benefit to us or to our customers for buying a made in the US APsystems product because it wouldn't qualify under the terms, the definition.
Hmm.
So we actually pulled together every other microinverter manufacturer in the industry, pulled together. Um, except for Enphase, because we are all multi-module microinverter or M3 manufacturers. And we decided, you know what, we want to give the American solar industry more choices than just Enphase. Um, and because they're looking at exclusivity on, probably a $2 billion a year solar opportunity, that installers and homeowners would have no choice but, Enphase for microinverters. So we looked at, okay, how can we can't change the legislation at this point, but perhaps we can change the interpretation. We can help Congress, we could help the Department of Energy, we could help the IRS, we could help all of them uh, change how that legislation is interpreted to broaden the that interpretation to include multi-module microinverters. And so we uh, spent a year of lobbying to congressional leaders, to as I mentioned, Department of Energy, to the IRS, to Treasury, I should say Treasury, and for how um, that that the language could be interpreted And we were fortunately successful. That now the interpretation is going to include specifics about, that applies to each channel as opposed to each microinverter. So now you can have a multi-module microinverter, and it's specific to the MPPT of each of those. So if you have a dual channel, dual MPPT, that qualifies now under the legislation. So then that opens up the door for APsystems to continue offering that product to customers here and have them get that benefit.
Thank you for that background.